So, 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 like always, we are live once again. I guess through the power, the internet. I might be stealing that line. So, welcome to my channel. Holy shit. Robert Does Wrestling. Sorry about that. Robert Does Wrestling. Robert Does Wrestling. Now we are prime time. If you happen to be one of those loyal subscribers that always watch these live streams, live shows, right? I got a question. Would you rather have the show like this time around at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, or would you rather, have it via 11 p.m. like I always use? Let me know in the chat room or in the comment section once this video is archived. So, let's talk about Impact Wrestling. This is Impact Wrestling from June 28, 2018, right? So we are this time from Canada at the Windsor, Ontario, Canada. So, first thing, I know there's people in the audience that don't like to hear negative stuff, but please listen to me. I might change your mind. I might persuade you into another way of thinking. We're gonna be addressing the 300 pounds gorilla first, and then we will talk about all the good stuff. And obviously, this show was full of a lot of good stuff. That production value on this one. I had a hard time. I'm not like a production expert or anything like that, but I have worked in cameras and in videos for a very long time. And you, if you're watching the screen, you should know what right looks like. And I know they were trying a couple of experimental things, and we're gonna be talking about that later on during the production of this Impact Wrestling show. But this, it is simply not that good. Look at it. Two different colors from the camera 8 to the camera B. And what bothers me is that this is not the first time this happened. I don't know if you can turn the clock back now. They did it once during London taping, but they fix it on later episode. Hopefully, they get that this doesn't look that good and they can fix it. And I know this is an art. You might be saying, "Hey Robert, I saw your video playing the guitar for the Muse team and you have two different colors in that video." And that is true. That is true. But I'm not a professional. But guess what? I tried my best, and on the second time that I recorded with two cameras, I was able to figure the whole thing out. It is not that difficult, at least on the amateur level, but that takes a lot of time. That might be something that they need to fix. This doesn't look professional. This looks indie. That is something that you might say like MLW. That is a promotion that is buzzing around. You take a look at the product, and the product is not bad, but you see stuff like this. You see cameras out of color and stuff like that. And this is why what I think about at the end of the day. I think since Impact Wrestling is being run by wrestling guys, they don't bother to take care of stuff like that. I think they might need to hire someone as a quality control guy, someone who just fix their production. And of course, that might you might gain a couple of new viewers because of that, or regain people. There's only things that I thought that Eric Bischoff did right, at least on his wrestling life. One thing was always knowing that the production was one of the best things that you can open the door for the new viewers. That is one of the stuff that you need to take care of. And the second thing was open fight night. Outside of that, I don't want nothing to do with the guy. But this is not about Eric Bishop. This is about Impact Wrestling. And now we're going to the positive stuff, right? We open up the show with Madison Rain cutting a promo. Obviously, she's now getting a push as the top baby face of Impact Wrestling, and she's wrestling for the Knockouts title versus Su Young. Like I told you before, they were experimenting a lot with different camera angles instead of the usual typical hard camera and then the feeling, B level camera. They did it a little bit different. Instead of doing 90 degrees, they shot the ring like 45 degrees, like this picture showed. This was something that WCW used to do during their heyday, like in 96 or something along those lines. And I think it is a lost art. I was happy to see it being brought back to life. Why? Because as you see it, you will be like face to face with the person who is cutting a promo. And also the ring make it look like a lot bigger, if you know what I mean. It also depends on the lens and stuff like that, but I like the angle that they were using during this show. So obviously you knew Tessa Blanchard was gonna show up, and they ended up being the main event of this show. So kudos to once again Impact Wrestling putting the knockouts at the top of the card, but without beating you over the head, telling you, hey, how do you know how great I am? Yes. Why? Yeah, because I put some woman wrestler at the top. No, it doesn't work like that. Like that. You go ahead and you do it. Show me first the results, and then you could brag about it. That is a conversation for another day. So obviously the lights went out, and that was Su Young playing mind games with Madison Rain. So Tessa took advantage of that and hit her straight in the jaw for the first segment, obviously setting up for the main event at the end of the show. Next, we got Rich Swann. Rich Swann doing his Impact Wrestling debut. One thing I have said a couple of times is one thing is talent, and another, whole different ball game is motivation, right? Like I have said it a couple of times. If there is a will, there is a way. Rich Swann, it is a quite talented guy. He's about average cruiserweight wrestler. But guess what? He looked extremely motivated during this TV debut on Impact Wrestling. You saw him the way he was busting out mood. He gave you that vibe like, hey, I am happy to be back. I'm glad that I am able to take and do something with Impact Wrestling. So that is something that really quick translated into the TV screen. And his first opponent was gonna be, ended up being, sorry about that, Trevor Lee, right? So it was Trevor Lee versus Rich Swann. One thing that I noticed during this match, Trevor Lee, and I know there's a lot of people that might disagree with me, and that is okay. But Trevor Lee is I would put it like the hidden gem of Impact Wrestling, one of those unsung heroes. I saw a lot of potential. I see a lot of potential still to this day in Trevor Lee. What are his shortcomings? His look. That look is indie as hell. You won't get anywhere with that. And that was the contrast between Rich Swann, who was in the major leagues in World Wrestling Entertainment, and someone who have more of a humble beginning, like Trevor Lee in the Indies and then in Impact Wrestling during some turmoil times. Obviously, you knew that Trevor, the Rich Swann, was gonna win his debut match. That I felt like okay, it was the right decision because, as I said a couple of weeks before, Trevor Lee and Callie Conley are the litmus test of Impact Wrestling. If they want you to get over, they put you against them. That's the same spot Abyss used to do back in the good old days. Also, Rich Swann, he brought in the repertoire during this match. He did the poisonous Huracarana, that is the reverse Huracarana. I I would love to see that from the top, but that's too dangerous. I know, a loon like Teddy Hart is gonna do it. That guy's, that guy's amazing. I know he's willing to do that, but I don't know about Trevor Lee. He's gonna sign up for that move. Also, we saw Rich Swann finishing up with a finish Phoenix Splash. That is the twisting 450 splash. But instead of doing it from the third rope, he did it from the second rope. So obviously, it is a lot near the canvas. So that was impressive as hell. And also, he did a couple of different moves. And Trevor Lee did a double foot stomp and stuff along those lines. However, I want to ask you a question for you, my listener, my subscriber. Do you feel like he was the right person, Trevor Lee, to be pinned against Trevor Lee? Let me know in the comment section. That might be a topic of conversation or in the chat or later on during this transmission. Next, we got a PCW segment. PCW segment. You got obviously Sami Callihan. He was on a steel case match versus Pentagon Jr. His battle buddies Ohio versus Everything decided to show up, and they took advantage of Pentagon Jr. and they took his mask off. I like this segment a lot. What I didn't like was the production value, but we already addressed that. Excellent, excellent, excellent segment. It was short and sweet, and obviously, Impact Wrestling is now, if I'm not mistaken, being shown on Mexico. This type of angle is gonna draw attention from that base that obviously is very familiar with Pentagon Jr. However, have you heard about the term of being a hindsight is always 2020? I wish if we can turn the clock back down, right? We can erase history or fix the past or something along those lines. I wish when Pentagon Jr. was introduced, I know, this happened about 2 months ago, so it is what it is, right? They will have talk about the history of the mask of Pentagon. I think I have explained this a couple of times, but I may have to do it again. The reason why Pentagon Jr. did wear the mask because he was fearless. This mask, the mask of Pentagon, was offered to other wrestlers, right? And I think the first two people who wore that mask ended up either dying soon after of getting into a car wreck or accident, and their careers ended up being cut short. Therefore, there was like this mystique about that mask. People saying, you know, thinking for a second, hey, what if this mask is curls? Not necessarily as a literal statement, but as a metaphoric statement, right? If you understand what I'm talking about. I think if you would add that dimension to the unmasking of Pentagon Jr., it will have brought in a whole new favor to the feud. There might be some of you that might say, "Hey, Impact Wrestling already have a wacky angle with Eddie Edwards seeing, Sammy Callahan's and his reflection on a crystal, on a mirror, right?" And you're right. You're right. But since we're working with the Lucha Underground wrestlers, and Lucha Underground is full of wacky stuff, what's left to lose, right? What's left? And I think that might have been a better idea. But either way, I'm fighting for that last 1%. But outside of this 99.5, this was excellent. This is the type of stuff Impact Wrestling should do, especially when you're trying to establish yourself in Mexico. We're gonna be talking about Mexico a little bit later on the broadcast. So obviously Sammy Callahan here celebrating that he took off the mask of Pentagon Jr. Next, this is one of the things I wanted to point out. This is how a indie look like, and this is how Impact Wrestling looks like. A world of difference. But it is what it is. It is what it is. We need to take the bad with the good. That is life. That is life, and that is one of the reasons I do appreciate Impact Wrestling, because they're willing to try. They're willing to fail. That is the man in the arena segment. The quote: "If you are the man in the arena, people are gonna, attack you and point out your mistakes. But at least you were not the cowards standing sidelines doing nothing when there was something that needed to be done." So Katarina, formerly known as Winter, he's returning to the ring, to the Impact Wrestling ring. And it was kind of funny because Grado didn't know she was a wrestler. And they did like that little inside joke, say, "Hey, that might be a different season." So that was like, "Hey, I saw what you thought you did there." Haha. So this is good. Let's see who they pair her up. And I haven't seen her like wrestle that much, so let's see how, if she's rusty in the ring or stuff like that. So I have no expectations. uh by the way, I'm gonna ask a question for all of you old school Impact fans. Do you like the old team that she used to do? I used to like that a lot. The same with Madison Rain. I know that those teams didn't sound like wrestling teams, but that is why I like them. It was a different flavor, more of something more mainstream music, not necessarily the rock wrestling type of new metal stuff. Next, we got the debut of the DCG squad, and they are with the manager Gamma Singh. So, by the way, by being the first time on Impact TV, he kind of garner a lot more hit that I was expecting him to garner, and since he's carrying it proudly his Indian heritage, he brings obviously a whole new flavor to the tag team division with the Desi Hit squad. Obviously, they were wearing some of the Indian traditional clothes. I know, India is a huge place and there's a lot of traditions inside of that place. Is like a continent. It's huge, that country. So they are doing some of that costume from that huge country. They ended up wrestling against DJC and Andrew Everett, the former, may you remember the former Impact Wrestling Tag Team Champions. The match was about average, nothing that you're not gonna stop sleeping if you didn't watch it. So obviously, the DC his squad was not gonna lose on their debut match. They ended up pinning Andrew Everett, doing help, doing a little roll up with some extra help. What did I like about that was, hey, what if they ended up going more of a traditional route with this tag team? I know, there's a, what are the name of those losers? The Revival. They're trying to do something similar, but not into that, like doing it like a tag team with a manager, like basic tag team wrestling, but with a manager. That's something also I might need to we need to talk about this for a second. And I saw someone writing this on Twitter, so if I don't know your name, sorry about that. So, but I think that is a good idea worth spreading. Impact Wrestling is bringing back the art of being a manager, right? Now you have Jimmy Jacobs being a manager. You got Kama Singh also being a manager, being successful doing that. So that is something, a lost art of the old school pro wrestling days. So it is something worth noting that they are bringing those things from the past and bringing into the future, like the old quote used to say, that that was once old is new again. Next, we got El Pentagon Junior. He's mad at Sammy Callahan, and he challenged Sammy Callahan to una lucha de apuestas, betting match, hair versus mask match at Slammiversary. Next, they show a little moose segment with the journey from being a football player all the way into joining professional wrestling. This was good, especially for like trying to gain sympathy for Moose and people sharing for Moose. This did that job quite good. This is the type of stuff that you do for big main events. Hey, this is why those things matter. And this is all the travel roads this guy used to do before getting to the big palace that is Slammiversary, the 16-year anniversary of Impact Wrestling. Next, let's talk about Mexico for a second. So now they're being shown, I think it's channel 2, if I'm not mistaken. Good. Finally, they're getting once again the chance of going up there. Hopefully, they have a tour. Not soon. By the way, now that we're on the topic of Mexico, on Triple A, right? They're gonna be having a main event with Pentagon Junior and El Hijo del Fantasma, and it is a lucha de apuestas, one of those betting matches. I think it is Mask versus Mac. I think La Parca, LA Park, is also involved on the match, if I'm not mistaken. So there's a possibility that Pentagon might get on Mask on Impact, and El Hijo del Fantasma might get on Mask on Mexico. So let's see what happens, but that might be some food food for thought, right? Next we got House of Hardcore. We got Eddie Edwards. He's still mad as hell at Tommy Dreamer, so he decided to show up at his workplace and pick him up and choke him on. By the way, great optics with this picture. Those were the things that they did to further this feud. I'm gonna ask another question for the audience. As for Tommy Dreamer and Eddie Edwards, now, as you know, June 29, 2018, what match would you rather watch? Eddie Edwards versus Sami Callihan, or Eddie Edwards versus Tommy Dreamer? Do you like that change in direction at last minute? At last minute? Let me know in the comment section, because I don't have that any problem with that. I think Pentagon Junior versus Sami Callihan, it is a superior match, especially for those that might be not as hardcore as I am. But you might disagree. So you disagree, go ahead and put your argument forward, and we're gonna examine that. Next, we got the Civil War brewing up inside of LAX. We got Conan saying to Hey Kingston, King, hey King, I know you, well, you bastard. You are the guy behind my attack during Redemption 2018, before Redemption 2018. So I'm gonna expose you because you are a rat, a traitor, a Benedict Arnold. So there is a war going on inside of Impact Wrestling. So this is the feud that I am obviously looking forward, and I'm gonna be speaking more about it once the whole revelation happened on television. Next, we got Matt Sydal, sorry, versus Desmond Xavier. Not a title match, but a good match. Obviously, you knew that those two are solid wrestlers, so they put up their usual type of stuff. However, obviously, you knew that Matt Sydal was gonna win. He's one of those, favorite guys from the office. So obviously, he ain't taking a pin, not yet. At least not until Slammiversary. Guess what? After he won, Brian Cage show up. I think it's bigger than ever. I think he's on his off season, so he's huge right now. But his revenge against Matt Sydal was cut short because Congo Kong decided to show up and attack him. They even did the segment with Congo Kong doing the splash from the third rope into on top of Brian Cage. So the pairing that I was expecting, is gonna be happening. Hopefully they let those two guys wrestle each other, and Brian Cage is able to do some strength exhibition with someone of the size of Congo Kong. And I bet when they upload that on YouTube, it's gonna have a lot of views because that is a lost art on pro wrestling. That big man matches, like legit. That is one of the things that draw a lot of viewers. So, but the most interesting thing about this this segment, the reverence between Matt Sydal and Jimmy Jacobs, like then bowing down at each other. I found this interesting, especially knowing that like the meaning behind Namaste. That means like your soul. My soul recognize your soul, something like that. Soul, like what you're supposed to have on your heart, or something like that. So it is interesting. This will this work? Jimmy Jacobs, Matt Sydal, and Congo Kong. Well, is if you let's do some flashback. Was this the original idea for Josh Matthews before deciding to abort that and send him back into the commentator booth, so having like a double spiritual guides? That may open up your mind into what is happening inside the booking team and their rationale for doing stuff. I think this might not the explain myself. Matt Sydal with Jimmy Jacobs was not the original idea. The original idea obviously was George Matthews, but they decided, hey, it is a great to do it with Jimmy Jacobs. So let's see what was happening next. But this is very very interesting. Next, we got Sammy Callahan once again with a camcorder. I mean, this guy's vicious, and he accepted the match versus Pentagon Junior. La apuesta, hair versus mask. The question goes like this, right? Who do you see losing on this one? Do you see Sammy Callahan bolt, or do you see Pentagon Junior without a mask? I'm thinking Sammy Callahan is taking the L. I don't think Pentagon Junior is getting a mask, especially on American wrestling. But I could be wrong. I did not expect him to win the belt. So that might have been a tit for tat. Hey, what if I give you the belt on your first pay-per-view? But that I'm gonna do that if you give me that mask for the anniversary show. Next, we got a match announced for next week: Phoenix versus Rich Swann. I haven't seen these two wrestle each other, but let's see how they wrestle. And Rich Swann, he looked motivated during this show. Therefore, the match, I expect it to be about average, above average. Also, Killer Cross is wrestling next week. He's doing a debut on Impact Wrestling. Also, Brian Cage versus Congo Kong. I would love this match to be the main event. Hopefully, they do a couple of feat of strength done by Brian Cage, or maybe even Congo Kong. By the way, I think Brian Cage would be the perfect opponent for Congo Kong to bring back his back flip. Just saying. Also, we got the Impact Wrestling on-screen debut for Alicia Atout. I probably butchered that last name. Sorry. So they put him. By the way, this is a little asterisk. Might like to ask. They put him on her first night on the big TV with the champ Austin Aries, doing an interview with him. What does that mean? That means that they might have a lot of confidence in her and her ability as a, you know, as a an on-screen character and interviewer. Obviously, they talk about the big main event, Austin Aries versus Moose, that is gonna be happening at a Slammiversary. Next, we get the main event of the evening, Mason Rain versus Tessa Blanchard. As for the match, obviously you knew Mason Rain was gonna beat Tessa Blanchard. After the match, Tessa Blanchard took a steel chair and she wanted to hit Mason Rain. Then the lights went out and Su Young showed up. Then Tessa Blanchard did the smart thing and she ran out of the ring. And all the undead bride ended up being all around the ring, and they decided to attack Madison Rain. Then Su Young put her on to her finisher, but Ali decided to show up, making her return to Impact Wrestling to make the save to Madison Rain. And that's how Impact Wrestling went off the air. The segment into itself was very solid segment. Obviously, there is a lot of hope by the office and by fans in Su Young as a main event talent. One of the little things, the small things that I noticed during this segment was that Su Young, when she went for her finisher, she was scanning for the hard camera. I don't know if you guys noticed the same thing as I did. Like she was scanning. Wait, where is the hard camera? And then she noticed. Hey, um, the hard camera is not there, so there's no no thing of me, you know, expecting the camera without actually doing the thing. Let's not waste time. But that is what happens when you're experimenting with little things like production. So let me take a look at the chat room before I go. So I got AJ Styles. This is the original AJ Styles in my chat room. Let me put the chat room on the screen. I got Phenomenal One saying, "Hey, it was a great show." Yeah, I agree. The only thing that I did not, agree with was the production value. I think they could have done something a little bit better with it. So it is what it is. But as for the show, and especially, thank you for reminding me that, especially for the people up north in Canada, they basically saved this show. Their energy was the one that failed the boy, left by not so good of a production value. So I hope you enjoy this live stream. So thank you a lot. Hopefully I will see you next week, Wednesday, probably. So obviously there's a couple of shows that I'm gonna be doing outside of this channel. So please make sure to check out my Twitter at Wrestling Robber. I'm doing a series in the Hillcast talking about Impact Wrestling, especially TNA Old School. We should release the show about 2007 next day, tomorrow, something like that. So be on the lookout for that. And there's a couple of things going on happening in different podcasts that I'm gonna be part of. And also I'm doing also a Latino type of podcast soon for Impact Wrestling. So be on the lookout for that. So that's it. Thank you a lot for listening and for your support. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.